AITA for cutting off access to our joint accounts after my wife's boyfriend tried to make me leave. I'm 32 years old, and I've been running my own contracting business for 8 years now. I started from nothing. I grew up in public housing with my mom after my dad left us when I was 12. In high school, I worked weekends at a scrapyard, then paid my own way through trade school before starting this business with an old pickup truck and a completely worn-out toolbox. Today, I comfortably make a 6-figure salary doing commercial installations in hospitals, office buildings, and production plants. It's the kind of work that keeps me on the road for weeks at a time, but lets me live the life I always dreamed of. Last month, I got home from a job in Ohio around 11 p.m. I had been gone for 9 straight days installing HVAC systems in a new medical facility, eating gas station food, sleeping in cheap motels, and dealing with inspectors and project managers who think installing air conditioning is some kind of magic. My shoulders were on fire. My work boots were covered in insulation, and I hadn't eaten anything that wasn't wrapped in plastic since breakfast. All I wanted was to grab something fresh from the fridge, fire up the Xbox, and decompress for a few hours before heading out to the next job. I was barely 2 minutes into opening a drink when some guy started pounding on my front door. He wasn't knocking. He was banging like he was trying to break it down. I figured it was probably Mitch, my next-door neighbor, having trouble with his water heater again. Mitch is a 62-year-old former Army Ranger who has appointed himself the head of neighborhood security. The guy owns more surveillance equipment than an FBI field office and treats every minor issue like it's a military operation. Usually, it's something simple I can fix in 20 minutes. So I opened the door expecting to see Mitch with a wrench and his usual scowl. Instead, there was a guy I'd never seen in my life, standing on my porch like he owned the place. In his 30s, trying way too hard to look successful. Designer tracksuit, a haircut that screamed, "I have a podcast," and he was clutching a manila folder to his chest like it held the nuclear codes. "You must be the husband," he said without even bothering to introduce himself, with a completely phony confidence. "I'm Kyle. Megan wants you out of here by Wednesday." I was just standing there in my work clothes, completely exhausted, and this total stranger was trying to kick me out of my own house. For a second, I wondered if I had heat stroke or something. "What are you talking about?" I asked. He waved the manila folder. "Megan filed for separation, man. You need to be gone by Wednesday, so we can, move on." I looked at the papers. Megan's signature was definitely on them, no doubt about it. "We?" I asked. "Yeah, me and Megan. We're together now, bro. She's been unhappy for months. It's time to move on, That's when it hit me. This wasn't a process server, a mediator, or anyone involved in any legal capacity. This was Megan's new boyfriend, standing on my front porch, trying to evict me from my own home like I was a tenant months behind on rent. I didn't say a word. I just shut the door in his face and locked the deadbolt. Through the peephole, I watched him stand there for about 30 seconds. Probably trying to figure out if his little power move had worked. Then he walked back to his car, a leased Audi he clearly couldn't afford. Mitch had been on his porch the whole time, smoking a cigarette and watching the scene like it was the best show on TV. "Nice try, champ," he called out as Kyle got into his car. Kyle didn't answer. He just peeled out of the driveway like a teenager who just got rejected for prom. I went back inside and made 3 phone calls. The first was to my lawyer. I explained the situation and asked him to review my legal standing. The second was to my bank to put alerts on all my accounts while I figured out what Megan was planning. I also had them freeze the joint accounts Megan and I had. She probably had money stashed away or was spending Kyle's money or credit. Either way, the clock started ticking the moment I cut off her financial access. The third call was to my business partner, Mark, to let him know my personal problems might interfere with work for a few days. Mark and I had started the company together after trade school. He handles the residential side while I focus on commercial projects. He's a good guy, straightforward, no nonsense, and absolutely ruthless when it comes to protecting our business. "You want me to look into this Kyle guy?" Mark asked. "I know a guy who does background checks." "Not yet," I replied, "but keep that option in your back pocket." I barely slept that night. Not because I was afraid of losing the house. I knew exactly where I stood legally, but because I was starting to realize how long this must have been going on behind my back. The next morning, I started noticing things I'd been too busy to see before. Little details that suddenly took on a whole new meaning. On Wednesday morning, I changed all the locks on the house. It cost me $350 for 6 new deadbolts, plus a smart lock system with a built-in camera. Best investment I ever made. Here's what Kyle and Megan didn't know, and what she had apparently forgotten to mention in their little planning session. I had bought this house 3 years before we got married. 2,600 square feet, a finished basement, a 2-car garage. I had paid for it in cash with money I'd saved from my first big commercial contracts, along with an inheritance from my grandfather who taught me to never entrust my assets to anyone. There was only one name on the deed, mine. I never added Megan because my grandfather used to say, "Never give someone the power to tear down what you built alone." The old man was paranoid about absolutely everything, but that paranoia might have just saved my life. Once the locks were changed, I started thinking back on all the strange things that had been happening for weeks. Things I had blamed on Megan, but now seemed much more suspicious. Groceries were disappearing twice as fast as usual. The electricity bills were going up, even when I wasn't home. The streaming services showed content I'd never watched. There were more dishes in the dishwasher. The expensive coffee I bought for special occasions was always empty. I'd noticed all of this for over a month, but I never connected the dots. When you work 70 hours a week and spend your time traveling, you don't really have time to analyze the habits of your own home. Then I remembered Kyle's exact words. "We can start the transition process." We, as if he'd already been part of this situation for a while. That's when I went into detective mode. I started with social media. Megan's Instagram was mostly the same. Yoga poses, photos of overpriced brunches, motivational quotes about leveling up and cutting toxic people out of your life. But now there were new faces in her stories, group photos at restaurants I'd never been to, people I didn't recognize, and a lot more activity during times when I was supposed to be the only one at home. Then I found Kyle's TikTok account. This clown had been running a full-blown content creation studio out of my house for over a month, and I'm not talking about a few hastily shot videos. He had set up professional equipment with ring lights and multiple camera angles. He was cooking elaborate meals in my kitchen with my appliances, working out in my basement gym with my equipment, and setting up shop in my home office, using my custom-built desk as a backdrop for his videos on entrepreneurial mindset. In one video, he was making a super fancy coffee drink with my $300 espresso machine, talking about the morning routines that separate winners from losers. In another, he was grilling high-end steaks on my back deck, explaining how to live like you've already made it. The comments were filled with people asking how he could afford such a luxurious lifestyle. He never corrected them. He just let them believe it was all his. But the worst was a video shot in my office. He was sitting in my ergonomic chair, feet propped up on my desk, talking about the millionaire mindset, while my professional certifications and awards hung on the wall behind him. "It's not enough to fake it till you make it," he said in that video. "You have to build it piece by piece until it becomes your reality." Yeah, I actually built it piece by piece, with real ductwork, real compressors, and 12-hour days spent in crawl spaces that would make this guy cry. I started taking screenshots of everything. Every video, every comment, every caption. The timestamps showed he'd been doing this for at least 6 weeks, always when I was away on jobs. Next, I checked my gym membership. 24-Hour Fitness lets you add family members, so I had added Megan when we got married. It turned out she had added Kyle, passing him off as my cousin, about 2 months earlier. The account history showed he was going regularly, bringing different people as guests, and racking up charges for personal training sessions and premium services. Staff notes indicated he was telling everyone he was a successful entrepreneur and was even hosting business networking sessions at the juice bar. I called the gym and immediately canceled his access. Then I changed the passwords to every single one of my streaming services. Then I started going through my credit card statements to see what other surprises were waiting for me. That evening, Kyle came back for round 2. I was eating dinner when my phone buzzed with a motion alert. I opened the security camera feed. There he was, pacing on my front porch like a caged animal. He started hammering on the door again. "Why did you change the locks?" he yelled through the door. "Megan's not answering. This is her house too." I walked over but didn't open it. "No," I said clearly. "We have rights. You can't just kick people out of their own home. You don't even have a key, Kyle. I've been living here for weeks. That gives me rights. You were trespassing. There's a legal difference." That set off a massive meltdown. He started stalking across the porch like a wild animal, screaming about his tenants' rights, an illegal eviction, and how he was going to sue me for everything. At one point, he even tried to kick the door down. That's when Mitch stepped out of his house next door. "Hey, TikTok," he called out, a cigarette hanging from his lips. "Yeah, you, with the fake teeth. Half the neighborhood is watching you throw a fit." Kyle spun around and tried to look menacing. "Mind your own business, old man. This doesn't concern you." Mitch didn't even blink. "Son, I've put holes in guys for a lot less than what you're doing now. You better think real hard about your next move." They stared each other down for about 15 seconds. Kyle looked at my locked door, then at Mitch, then back at the door. Finally, he stomped off toward his car like a kid who'd just been denied candy. I saved all the security camera footage to cloud storage. Thursday morning, I sent a text to Megan. "You have 24 hours to get your things. Kyle is permanently banned from this property." Her reply came so fast, she must have been waiting by her phone. "Absolutely not. Kyle lives here now. You can't just throw us out like this. We have rights. This is our home and our life together. Check the deed," I replied. And then, the floodgates opened. I got a barrage of messages accusing me of financial abuse, emotional manipulation, and being a control freak. She started throwing around legal terms like she'd spent all night binge-watching Law and Order. I didn't reply to any of them. I just let her waste her energy. Around noon, she switched tactics. Now it was all about the money she claimed I owed her for 6 years as your unpaid stay-at-home wife. She claimed she had sacrificed everything for my business and deserved a share of what I owned as compensation for all those sacrifices. The reality: she worked part-time folding yoga pants, spent her entire paycheck on overpriced wellness products, and had never paid a single bill. But now, she was playing the martyr. Then came the emotional blackmail. "How could you do this to Muffin? She's been my baby for 3 years. You're literally abusing an innocent animal." Muffin was a cat she had bought on a whim and then neglected for months. I was the one who bought her food, cleaned her litter box, and took her to the vet. By Thursday night, she had moved on to long, rambling guilt trip messages about how we used to be soulmates, how I was destroying something sacred, and how we couldn't just handle this like evolved adults. I started documenting everything: bank statements, mortgage documents, insurance policies, utility bills, every single piece of evidence showing that the house was mine and that I had paid for everything myself. Then I organized all the evidence I had gathered on Kyle: the TikTok videos, the gym membership fraud, the screenshots of him pretending to own my property. I put it all in a folder with dates, exact times, and legal annotations. Friday morning, at 8:30 a.m. sharp, there was a knock on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw a guy in a cheap suit, holding a briefcase that looked like it came from a thrift store. "Mr. Johnson?" he said when I opened the door. "I'm attorney Mr. Shapiro. I represent Mr. Kyle. We need to talk about you illegally evicting my client." I let him in, not because I was worried, but because I wanted to see what kind of bogus legal strategy they had cooked up. Mr. Shapiro sat down at my kitchen table and pulled out a yellow legal pad covered in illegible scribbles. He started throwing around terms like established residency, de facto tenancy, and damages for wrongful eviction. "Your client has no lease," I replied. "It doesn't matter. He has been living here for over 60 days. Under state law, that makes him a tenant, lease or not. And for free. No rent, no bills, no official paperwork. Financial contribution is not a requirement for residency rights." I pulled out my phone and played one of Kyle's videos. His voice echoed through the kitchen. "Megan is with me now. This is our place. We live here together." Mr. Shapiro stopped writing. I played another video. "I'm her man now. We're partners in this. You can't just kick us out." Then I slid the evidence folder across the table. The deed, the insurance documents, the bank statements, the bills, the security camera footage of Kyle trying to kick my door down. Everything was perfectly organized and presentation ready. Mr. Shapiro went through the documents slowly. I watched his smug expression fade as he realized just how screwed his client was. "Look, my client would be willing to waive any future claims if you'll just provide a small settlement for his moving expenses," he finally offered. I stared at him. "You want me to pay your client to stop squatting in my house? It's just a standard way to resolve these situations." Here's what's going to happen. Kyle can pick up whatever junk he left behind from the street. If he sets one foot on my property again, I'm pressing charges. You want to take this to court? Go ahead. But next time, bring better evidence. Mr. Shapiro packed up his documents without another word. As he was walking to his car, Mitch called out from next door, "Hey, counselor, tell your client next time he wants to play house. Maybe he should pick someone who can't read a mortgage agreement." Mr. Shapiro didn't even look back. I packed all of Kyle's stuff into boxes. Energy drinks, cheap cologne, self-help books with titles like Alpha Mindset and Millionaire Habits. I put it all on the curb with a note. "This is the closest you'll ever get to owning property. You're welcome." That weekend, I gave Megan one last chance to come get her things. "Text me before you come. Come alone. No drama." She violated all 3 conditions. Sunday night, I got back from a job in Tennessee. A 4-day commercial install that had wrapped up early, which meant I was coming home Sunday instead of Monday. Lucky for me, not so lucky for whoever wasn't expecting me. The moment I pulled into my driveway, I knew something was wrong. All the lights in the house were on. Megan's car was parked in my spot. The garage door was wide open, and I could see boxes piled up inside. I walked in the front door and was immediately hit with the smell of vanilla candles and Thai takeout. There were several plates in the sink. Expensive drinks were sitting on the counter, and the guest room door was wide open, revealing Kyle's entire wardrobe neatly hanging in the closet. Megan walked into the kitchen wearing one of my company t-shirts, like she was posing for a magazine. "Oh, you're home early," she said with unnerving calm. "I wasn't expecting you until tomorrow. This isn't an Airbnb. You don't live here anymore." "Actually, I do. The separation isn't final yet. My lawyer says I have every right to occupy the marital home during the proceedings. You have an apartment. Go occupy that." She kept moving around the kitchen like she owned the place, and I was the guest. She was opening cabinets, checking the fridge, completely ignoring my authority. But I didn't argue with her. I just observed and took mental notes. That night, I heard her on the phone behind the guest room door. The room still had the smoke detector with a built-in microphone that I'd installed for security. I opened the audio feed and listened to her conversation. "Just give me one more week," she was whispering. "He's weak if you know how to play him. I just need to guilt him one more time. After that, this will all be settled. Trust me, I know exactly how to handle him." She wasn't trying to save our marriage. She was just buying time to allow Kyle to establish some kind of legal claim to the house. Monday morning, she tried to negotiate over breakfast. "Look, let's be adults about this, okay? Kyle needs a place to crash for, I don't know, a month, maybe 2. You're barely ever here anyway. He could use the guest room, help out around the house. We don't have to go through lawyers and all that expensive crap. You want your boyfriend to live in my house while we're getting a divorce? God, you're so dramatic. He's not dangerous or anything. He just needs some time to get his business off the ground." "Absolutely not. You're impossible. You're making this so much harder than it needs to be." I said no. "We're done with this discussion." She slammed a cabinet door and stormed out. 2 hours later, I noticed several items missing from my home office: the laptop, the tablet, and the luxury watch that was in my dresser. I checked the security cameras. The indoor cameras had been unplugged again, but the outdoor cameras caught everything. At 7:15 a.m., Megan was loading my electronics into her car. I sent her a text, "Give me my things back immediately. Kyle needed them for some important business meetings." "Calm down. We're still married, remember? What's yours is mine. That's how this works." Wrong move. I called the police. An officer arrived, a different cop this time, but just as direct. He was in his late 40s, with zero patience for domestic drama. I showed him the security camera footage, the receipts, and the serial numbers. Megan tried her marital rights speech. "We're still legally married," she explained to Officer Bailey. "He can't just keep everything for himself while I'm trying to rebuild my life after he abandoned me." Officer Bailey shut that excuse down immediately. "Ma'am, taking someone's property without their permission is theft. Marriage doesn't change that. These items were purchased before the separation. They belong to him." She had to return everything under police supervision. The laptop had food stains on it, the tablet screen was cracked, and the band was missing from my watch. She acted like it was just a minor inconvenience. "It's just material stuff. Why are you making such a big deal out of such insignificant things?" Mitch was watching the whole scene from his porch. He didn't even have to raise his voice. Megan, he called out. Next time you decide to steal stuff, maybe don't do it in front of 6 different cameras. Mind your own business, you paranoid old man, she shot back. Mitch just nodded slowly. That right there is why you're going to lose everything. Friday morning, I had to leave for North Carolina, a big hospital project that couldn't be postponed. They needed the HVAC systems installed before patients arrived. I'd been planning this job for months. Before I left, I sent a very clear message to Megan. Do not bring Kyle back to the house. Do not push me again. She read my message and didn't reply. I also stopped by Mitch's. I told him I'd be gone for 3 days and asked him to keep an eye on the house. He was cleaning one of his rifles on his porch with some kind of military-grade scope attached to it. No problem, he said without looking up from his work. But I have a feeling your boy Kyle is going to try something stupid while you're gone. Just call the police if you see him. Mitch smiled. Oh, I'll do a lot more than that. I should have realized that wasn't just a promise, it was a threat. The hospital job went smoothly. 3 days of intense work, but we finished ahead of schedule and under budget. A good contract, a happy client, and a great addition to our portfolio. But on Sunday afternoon, I got a message from Mitch with a video attached and a single word, told_you. I opened the video and my blood pressure shot up instantly. Kyle's car in my driveway. Then another video showing Kyle and 2 other guys unloading furniture from a moving truck. Then footage of Megan letting them in my front door with a key. I called Mitch immediately. How long has this been going on? I asked. Since Friday night. Full-scale, moving operation. They had a whole truck, professional movers, the works. Did you call the police? Wanted to let them dig their own graves first. Are you heading home tonight? He asked. I'm leaving now. Should be there in about 4 hours. This is going to be entertaining. I hit the road Sunday night, my hands clenched so tight on the steering wheel my knuckles turned white. 4 hours on Interstate 77, thinking about what I was going to find when I got home. I pulled into my driveway around 8 p.m. The smell hit me before I even opened the door. Cigarettes, booze, and pizza. Definitely not my cigarettes. Definitely not my booze. Inside, it looked like a dorm room. Trash everywhere. Furniture had been moved. Shoes I didn't recognize were scattered around. And in the guest room, Kyle's entire life. Clothes, electronics, workout supplements, even a mini fridge plugged in next to the bed. Megan walked out of the bathroom like I was just early for an appointment I'd set myself. You're back sooner than expected, she said. You gave him a key. He needed a secure place to stay while he sorted out his lease situation. He's completely moved in. It's temporary. Stop being so dramatic about everything. Then Kyle walked out of my kitchen, wearing my workout clothes, eating a sandwich made with my food, and drinking my drink like he'd bought it himself. What's up, man? He said, as if we were roommates. We didn't think you'd be back until Monday. I looked around the living room. Something important was missing. Where's my TV? Kyle's face froze for half a second. What TV? I opened the security app. And there it was, Saturday afternoon, Kyle and another guy loading my 75-inch Samsung TV into a van. I was just keeping it safe, Kyle said. You know, the neighborhood's gotten a little sketchy lately. Didn't want someone breaking in and stealing it. Oh, right. So you stole it first. No response. I went into my home office. The computer was still there, but everything was a mess. The screen was dirty. All the settings had been changed. The browser history was full of sites and crypto scams I had never visited. And that's when I discovered the real nightmare. My company's account had been accessed, the client management software, the billing system, the customer databases. This piece of trash had used my saved passwords to get into my business accounts. This was no longer just some jerk squatting in my house. This was corporate espionage. I made an emergency call to my company's cybersecurity team. A few minutes later, I was on a conference call with IT specialists. They were already locking down the systems, changing passwords, and running security audits. My client data had been compromised, billing information, job site locations, financial data. If any of that information leaked, I was facing federal charges and lawsuits that could destroy everything I had built. I went back to the kitchen. Kyle was still there, eating my food, looking completely clueless as to why I was so angry. You accessed my company's business account, I said. I just needed to check something real quick. You committed a federal crime. Megan chimed in. He was trying to help you. He's been more supportive than you ever were. Megan, I said, shut up. This is no longer about a marriage or whatever nonsense. This is a federal matter. Kyle shrugged. Dude, relax. I didn't take anything. Actually, you accessed protected systems without authorization. That's a criminal offense. And that's when he made his biggest mistake. He laughed. You're full of it, man. Nobody's going to prosecute someone over some computer stuff. He had that same smug, artificial little smile from his TikTok videos, that manufactured confidence that probably worked on college girls. Before I even realized what I was doing, I had him grabbed by the shirt and slammed him against the refrigerator. He tried to push me off, but he was about as strong as a wet paper towel. I held him there. You made a mistake, Kyle, I said calmly. You thought I was weak? His face was starting to turn red. Megan started screaming like the house was on fire. Let him go? You're insane. No, I said, still holding him in place. I'm just done being patient. I finally let him go and he crumpled to the floor, gasping for air and clutching his chest. You're a psycho, he wheezed. Go ahead, call the police, I said to Megan. Explain to them how your boyfriend hacked into a federal contractor's systems. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Kyle, still on the floor, decided to confess everything. I was just trying to find some leverage to help Megan get a better settlement in the divorce, he said. Megan stopped screaming. What? I was trying to help you get what you deserve. You told me you just needed to check your email. Kyle realized in that moment that he'd just blown their entire plan to bits. When Officer Bailey arrived 40 minutes later, I handed him my phone with the recording, the security camera footage, and the computer logs showing exactly which of my systems Kyle had accessed. This is way beyond a simple domestic dispute, Officer Bailey said, reviewing the evidence. He's looking at federal charges. Kyle was sitting on my couch in handcuffs, still rubbing his throat, as his dream of becoming a social media influencer died before his eyes. Kyle was arrested that night on multiple charges: computer fraud, unauthorized access to computer systems, identity theft, and attempted corporate espionage. Officer Bailey brought in federal agents who took over the case a few hours later. They seized his phone, his laptop, and every electronic device he had brought to my house. They began building a case that would follow him for the rest of his life. Megan tried to play innocent, like she had absolutely no idea what Kyle was up to. But the federal agents didn't buy it. They had found messages between them where they discussed ways to find compromising information on me to use in the divorce. Kyle was sitting in the back of the federal transport vehicle, a far cry from the confident alpha male he played in his videos. He was just a terrified kid who had just made the biggest mistake of his life. Marcus, the friend who had helped steal my TV, showed up 2 hours later with a truck full of my belongings. The federal agents gave him a choice: cooperate fully or be prosecuted as an accomplice. He chose to cooperate. Everything was returned to me: the TV, the air fryer, the power tools, even my collection of high-end whiskey I kept for special occasions. I checked every item against my inventory while the agents filled out their seizure report. Mitch stayed on his porch during the entire operation, filming absolutely everything with professional equipment. Better than Netflix, he told me. You should have sold tickets. When Marcus brought back the last load, he accidentally dropped a box of my imported coffee. Nearly $250 worth of rare beans spilled all over my driveway. Kyle, still in the transport vehicle, even cracked a smile at the sight. Oops, he said. That earned him an additional charge: destruction of property. Megan tried to downplay the whole thing. This is insane. It's just coffee. You're ruining his life over nothing. He ruined his own life, I replied. I'm just documenting the facts. The federal case moved quickly. Kyle's lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the prosecutor had built a reputation in cybercrime cases. No deals for federal offenses. That's when I decided to make my move. I called my lawyer, not the one handling the divorce, but my business attorney, the one who handles commercial litigation. A guy as sharp as a razor and twice as ruthless. I want to file for divorce, I told him. Now, while the federal case is ongoing. That's smart, he replied. She's vulnerable, distracted, and her credibility is at an all-time low. We can use the criminal case to our advantage. Exactly. I want the process started before she has time to get organized. We filed the papers the following Thursday. A full divorce petition, along with a detailed financial disclosure showing exactly what I owned and what she had actually brought into the marriage. The result was clear: I owned everything. She owned nothing. But the best part was, we included the federal criminal case as evidence demonstrating destructive behavior detrimental to the marital relationship. Her involvement in Kyle's crimes thus became an official part of the divorce record. Megan was served with the divorce papers at the restaurant where she worked. The process server told me she broke down in tears in front of customers and was sent home early. She called me that night, completely hysterical. "You filed for divorce while I'm already dealing with a criminal case? That's emotional abuse." "It's just strategic timing," I replied. "Your boyfriend committed federal crimes using my property. That constitutes grounds for divorce in any state. I didn't know what he was doing." "The messages say otherwise. Your lawyer will explain what the discovery process is." She hung up on me. 2 days later, she showed up at my door with a low-budget lawyer who looked like he'd never handled a case worth more than $500. "My client is entitled to half of all marital assets," he declared, reading from his notepad. "The house, the business, the retirement accounts, everything." I handed him our response brief. 47 pages of documents proving I had bought the house before the marriage, that I had developed the business independently, and that I had funded everything myself. We had also attached the evidence of Megan's involvement in the federal crimes to demonstrate her character. Her lawyer quickly skimmed the documents, and his face went pale. "We're going to need some time to review all this," he said. "Take all the time you need," I replied. "The facts aren't going to change." Kyle eventually pleaded guilty to avoid a longer prison sentence. He got 2 years of probation, $18,500 in restitution, 300 hours of community service, and mandatory training on cybercrime. But then, Mitch worked his magic. It turned out my neighbor had a background in military intelligence and had a network of contacts who specialized in character investigations and background checks. He had found 2 other women who had been scammed by Kyle using the exact same playbook. Their testimonies led to the revocation of Kyle's plea deal. The prosecutor filed additional charges. Kyle is now serving an 18-month sentence in a federal prison and faces another 2 years upon his release. His social media presence has been completely wiped out. TikTok, Instagram, everything is gone. The memes were legendary. From influencer to inmate, from TikTok to the big house. Someone even created a remix video using his motivational quotes over footage of his arrest. It got over 80,000 views before the platform took it down. Meanwhile, Megan was getting demolished in divorce court. Her budget lawyer was completely outmatched by my legal team. Every time they tried to claim a marital asset, we responded with evidence of her involvement in criminal activities. The judge was clearly not on her side. During one hearing, Megan tried to argue that she deserved compensation for her emotional labor and for supporting my career. The judge looked at the paperwork regarding her association with criminal activities and replied, "Ma'am, you supported a federal felon's attempt to sabotage your husband's business. That does not constitute grounds for compensation." Megan walked away with exactly what she brought into the marriage: nothing. No house, no share in the business, no alimony, no assets, just her personal belongings and what was left of her dignity. The entire process took 6 weeks. My lawyer called it the most efficient divorce he's ever handled. When you file the right documents at the right time and have the right evidence, it's not even a fight, he explained. It's just documentation. After the divorce was finalized, Megan went into full victim mode on social media. Long posts about the financial abuse she had supposedly suffered and how I had weaponized the legal system to destroy her happiness. Nobody believed it. Her own family contacted me to apologize. Her father called me directly. "I didn't raise her to be this kind of person. I'm ashamed of what she's become." Her mother was even more blunt. "You're better off without her. We tried to warn her years ago." Her sister, Jennifer, contacted me via Facebook. "She's completely lost it. She's blaming everyone but herself. Even our parents have cut her off. The boutique where she worked fired her completely. They couldn't afford to have someone associated with federal crimes representing their brand. She ended up in a studio apartment across town, working at a chain restaurant and trying to rebuild her life from scratch. Last I heard, she was trying to become a life coach, selling online courses on how to overcome adversity and rebuild after betrayal. 0 clients, 0 credibility. Mitch continued to keep an eye on both of them for several months. Know your enemies, he told me. It's the foundation of any tactical strategy. About 6 months after this whole thing started, 3 months after the divorce, Megan showed up at my door. It was a Tuesday night. I had just gotten back from a big contract in Florida, $180,000 to install an HVAC system in a new pharmaceutical facility. My business was booming. My reputation was solid. My life was exactly where I wanted it to be. I opened the door and barely recognized Megan. She had lost weight, her hair was a mess, and she was wearing clothes that looked like they came from a thrift store. "Can we talk?" she asked in a barely audible voice. "We're divorced, Megan. There's nothing to talk about. About us. About maybe trying again." She started to cry. "I messed everything up," she said. "Kyle was just using me. He made me believe you were the bad guy in all this. I was so stupid, and I'm so sorry. But we can fix this. I still love you. We could get remarried." I looked at her. Her level of denial was completely staggering. "I'm falling apart," she whispered. "I can't pay my rent anymore. I have nothing left. And Kyle, he's in prison. He won't even talk to me. His lawyer told me he blames me for everything. So now you want to come back? I want to make things right. I want to be the wife you deserved. I'll do anything." Mitch was watching us through the window, listening to every word. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, turning back to her. "You're going to leave. You're going to stay away from me, my house, my business, and my life. Forever. Please," she begged. "I'll sign anything you want. I'll give up everything." "Megan, we're already divorced. You've already given up everything. That was months ago. I can't make it on my own. I need help. I need you." That's when I smiled. "You should have thought of that before you moved another man into my house." She was sobbing now. "I'll do anything. I'll be your housekeeper, your whatever you want. But please, don't leave me like this." I started to close the door. "Your time is up. Back away. Please. I'm desperate. I have nowhere to go. That's not my problem anymore. That's why I divorced you." She started screaming then. The 7 stages of grief in 2 minutes flat. "Go to hell. You destroyed my life. This is all your fault. None of this would have happened if you had cared about me. Are you finished?" She didn't like that. She started muttering insults, crying, and sniffling at the same time. I watched her sit in her old car for 10 minutes, just crying. Then she drove away, and that was the last time I ever saw her. About an hour later, Mitch came over from his porch. "Heard the whole thing," he said. "You handled that like a pro." "Yeah. Want a drink?" "Oh, absolutely." 6 months later, I got a message from Jennifer, Megan's sister. Megan had moved back in with her parents in Ohio. She was working at a grocery store, living in their basement, and still trying to launch her life coaching business with absolutely no success. Kyle had gotten out of prison the month before. He had moved back in with his parents in another state, was working at a call center, was banned from social media, and had a permanently destroyed reputation. Meanwhile, my business was thriving. I started dating a woman who actually appreciates what I've built, instead of trying to steal it from me. But we're still taking our time. Mitch is still the best early warning system a man could ask for. And every time I walk through the door of my house, I'm reminded of exactly what happens to people who mistake kindness for weakness. Some lessons are permanent, some consequences are forever, and that's exactly how it should be. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.